So I am the eldest daughter, the eldest granddaughter, the eldest child, the eldest grandchild on both sides of my family. I'm basically like the eldest everywhere. The only place where I'm not the eldest is on my mom's side because she remarried when I was a lot younger, and my stepbrother is 6 months older than me. But still, I have that modicum of responsibility that I've basically carried all my life. In fact, I was pretty much a miniature adult, which you can imagine didn't make me very popular with a lot of kids because I didn't know how to really be a kid. I wanted to be a kid, but I always had that feeling of responsibility. I mean, it's pretty much ingrained in eldest children is like it's that Encanto song. Give it to your sister's older, give her all the heavy things we can't shoulder. And like there's a lot of expectation that's placed on us as the eldest. As a result of that, I have been really, really mindful of how I put responsibility on my son. First of all, he's the eldest child in my family again. He's the first grandchild. He's the first great grandchild. He's there's no like nephews or nieces on my side of the family. He's also like the eldest cousin on his dad's side of the family. He's the firstborn male. So he's got even more responsibility placed on his shoulders than I did as the firstborn female. I had the maternal side, and I can see this in my son quite often, is that because I'm a single mom, right now he identifies himself as the man of the house. And let me tell you, that's a really, really hard thing because I was the woman of the house when I was being raised by my dad. And there was a lot of things that went on that I'm not going to get into, but basically my family has just had crisis and trauma, and bad things have happened, and I've had to really step up, and I had to take care of my family emotionally. I had to be there for my brother after school. I had to walk him home. I had to, like, I couldn't go out and play. Not that I really wanted to. I was an introvert, so I used that as an excuse a lot of the times. I can't go hang out today. I have to take care of my brother. I have to feed my brother. But I mean, he was in middle school by the time we moved down here. Theoretically, I could have gone out and left him at home. I mean, as soon as you hit 12 years old, you can stay home by yourself, right? But I didn't see it that way. I saw it as it's my responsibility to just keep the house sort of tidy, to make sure that we didn't have any friends over. Nobody trashed the house. There were no parties when my dad was at work. Like I basically ran that house and raised my brother in a lot of ways. And when I realized that my marriage was ending, I really did not want that to happen, not just for me, but also for my son, because I didn't want him to be in that role of man of the house. That was terrifying to me because this child, already being the eldest child and already seeing that mommy needed a little bit of help, he really took that on because he's very close to me and he takes on a lot of responsibility. And I had this fear that I was parentifying him. Now, obviously, I want him to have his independence because I also believe that kids need to grow up. They just need to. They need to do it at their own pace. They need to do it developmentally, but you can't keep a kid a baby forever. And with an elder child, when a firstborn comes along, like you spend all your time and energy devoted to this child, and they're the baby. They're the only baby. But then something happens, you go and you have another child, and suddenly that baby is no longer a baby. They look like such a big kid. And that big kid can do big kid things. That big kid can now go to preschool. That big kid can now go to elementary school. That big kid can now get their own snack. That big kid can get themselves dressed. and you've got a tiny little baby that you're also trying to take care of at the same time. So you cannot devote all of your time to helping the big kid. The big kid has to grow up. Sometimes that big kid has to grow up when they're 2. Sometimes that big kid has to grow up when they're 3. In my case, I was almost 4 years old when my brother was born. And in Hunter's case, he was almost 3. So you go from being the baby to suddenly being, I'm a big kid now. I'm the big brother. I'm the big sister. I need to help mom. I need to help dad. I'm helping now. So we automatically internalize that. We see that there's a new baby in the family, especially if we're past the age where we're a baby ourselves. We're in more self-awareness. So we're about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And we suddenly see it's like, mom and dad are busy with this baby. I've got to do things for myself. So we take that on as I've got to do things for myself. And this can get really toxic really fast because suddenly we realize we have to do more for ourselves. And if our parents also have this mentality of, well, they're on their own without recognizing, without being aware of it, it can get to the point where we stop asking for help. We stop expecting our parents to do anything for us, and we actually suffer in silence. And we also take on the role of, I have to be the best. I have to be the star. I have to be the role model for my brother or sister. So I've been very, very conscious of that with my kids, especially since I also have the mindset of they need to also grow up and be independent in a world that is very helicoptery. And I don't want my kids to be helicoptered because I also know that being hovered over is not going to help with growth. Because even though I was the eldest in my family, because of the trauma that I had gone through and the fact that I was the only kid, like me and my brother were the only ones whose parents were not together. So we got a little bit more attention because our parents were divorced and because I was so sad all the time and because I didn't have friends and I didn't have the resources that my cousins had. So I got babied too. I got a little bit of baby and like it was a little bit annoying after a while. As much as I love my family, the fact is that because I didn't really get to have much of a childhood, they then felt that I was like, there were points where I would have a break. Like I'd break down when I was a lot younger and be like, I can't do this. I can't keep being responsible anymore. I can't keep being the strong one. I need to be able to relax, but I can't break. So then kind of like Louisa in Canto, I kind of had that of like, I can't break because if I break, everybody's going to like basically be like, what's wrong with you? And that's exactly what happened, is that when I would inevitably be my age and have those moments of doubt and everything, people were like, well, you were always so responsible. What's going on? Why can't you do this now? And again, that's not helpful. That's really not helpful because then I internalize that as I'm not good enough just as I am. I can't be loved unless I'm doing things for other people. So where am I really going with this? Okay. So obviously I don't want that for my kids. I don't ever want my kids to feel like they're not good enough just as they are. Of course, I have these big dreams for them. And of course, I see them as these independent, powerful adult children that are like, they're going to grow up and they're going to do amazing things and they're going to be independent. And at the same time, I also see that they're a baby. So this morning, I'm just going to give you one little snippet. It's like Hunter is almost 10. He's very much like responsible. Yesterday, he told me, it's like, Mom, I want pancakes for dinner. And I said, I'm not making pancakes. I had something else planned. And he's like, well, I want to make pancakes for dinner. So he ended up actually making dinner because he wanted to have pancakes for dinner. Now, that wasn't him taking on the role of, I have to make dinner. This was, I want something different than what Mom was planning. And I am willing to go out and make the pancakes for everyone so that I can have what I want. This is how I basically help Hunter because he wants to cook. He wants to be part of the family. He wants to contribute. He wants to be independent. He wants to be able to make his own choices. And cooking is an important life skill that he's going to need to have. So I can't just say, no, Hunter, I'm just going to make dinner and you're just going to eat whatever I want, because that's not going to work for him at this age. He's already becoming a teenager. But at the same time, he's still a little boy in a lot of ways. Even though he's almost the same size as me, like he's up to here now, like he is still a little boy. And he came into the room, like after getting up for a minute and getting himself a glass of water this morning. And then he came back in the room, and instead of going back to his bed, he climbed into mine and just laid his head down on my chest. And I just stroked his hair because he's still a little boy. And, you know, there's that little kid in all of us. And sometimes I've got that little girl feeling of like, I wish somebody was there to hold me. And just a second. And it's sometimes really hard, especially as the eldest, because everybody spends time with the babies and the eldest child doesn't get the hugs, or the eldest child thinks that they need to be strong. And like Hunter, I've taught him that he can always get hugs. And then there's that moment of guilt sometimes when I have to tend to his younger sister in that moment, and I cannot give him that hug right away. And I'm like, look, I really want to be able to give you a hug, and I have to take care of your sister right now. And I will give you a hug as soon as I'm able to, because I know that that's important to you. But I can't give it to you in that moment. And it's really hard. That's probably one of the hardest things about being a single parent, is that there's nobody else to tend to one kid while I go and tend to the other. And like, there's that moment. But I mean, it's just so frustrating that like I am standing for their independence. And at the same time, other people are like, well, you know, you're putting too much responsibility on a kid, because yeah, that's usually what they do with single parents. Is like, it's in the literature that in single parent families, the elder child tends to get a lot of pressure and responsibility because they're like the second parent. And I'm mindful of that. The thing about education, though, is that you can use it to your advantage. And this is what I do, is I will go and read those scary statistics. I will go and read all that stuff that says science says that kids in single mother families have these issues. But then I use it to arm myself. And I'm like, okay, so this is the thing that could possibly come up, and I'm going to be proactive about it. So I've been very proactive, just like knowing as a struggle as a firstborn, knowing that struggle ahead of time. As soon as I knew I was going to get pregnant again, I just thought to myself, how can I make this an empowering experience for Hunter so that he doesn't take on too much for his age? Because he's only going to be 3. How do I make it so that he still feels that he is helpful without him thinking he's responsible for his sister? And I mean, I did my very, very best, but there's just something about the firstborn mentality that we still feel responsible for our siblings. Even when our siblings are all grown up, we still feel responsible for them. And that takes a lot of work with boundaries and inner child work to recognize where that's coming from so we can let it go. But every once in a while, I mean, my siblings, I love them and I want the best for them. And I do feel that responsibility to help them get on the right path and to be the good role model. And as a mother, it's even more so. So the thing about eldest children is that when you become a parent and you're an eldest child, you tend to take on even more responsibility, because you don't want your kid to ever feel like they're on their own. So I've had to struggle between wanting to do everything for them. So I have those things. I absolutely still have those things come up, and that tendency to want to hover, but I don't, because if I do hover over them, if I do try to do everything for them, I know where that's going to lead. So it's kind of an interesting dance because, yes, I do have very, very strong maternal instincts. If my baby needs help, of course, I'm going to go to them. But I also have had to take a step back. And a lot of moms, they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to let go because we've been taught that we're supposed to be there for our kids. And it's even harder if you yourself did not get to be a child because maybe something happened in your family. Maybe there was a crisis and mom and dad were not emotionally available, or they weren't physically available, or they just didn't have the mental capacity to deal with it. I mean, things like losing your home, losing a job, losing a loved one. Like there's so many crises that can happen. And I mean, we have these too. So even when I'm going through something, I'm very, very mindful. And I even tell the kids, like, if they see me crying, I'm like, you don't have to take care of me. And they're like, yeah, but you're sad. And it's like, I know, I can take care of myself. Like, I'm okay. I can find those resources, but we really have to find those. Sometimes they weren't even taught to us. So I'm just going to invite you, if you're struggling with this in any way, as an eldest child who happens to have a child, or as an eldest child who maybe you don't have a family yet, but you still have that feeling that you have to keep pushing through and it's to the detriment of your own body. I mean, I just had that lesson thrown back on me again because I was really pushing myself through this launch of, like, I was working on something with my workshop and it was just a dry run. I knew it was just a dry run. I'd even said it was just a dry run and that, like, I'm just going to keep making it better and better. But I still had those feelings of it has to be like, this has to be it. And then some other things happened. The owner wants to sell this house. I don't know if an investor is going to buy it and keep it as an income property, or if it's going to be a whole family who wants to also use the basement, and then I have to move. So I've got that I'm dealing with at the same time. And it's kind of challenging because sometimes it's like, I kind of wish that I had somebody else to lean on besides myself. But at the same time, I can't lean on my kids because here's the difference between parentification of your child and giving them true responsibility for their age. First of all, your kids cannot feel emotionally responsible for the outcome. If you ask them to clean the house, like clean up something of theirs, or to do some extra chores as they get more capable and old enough to do it, or when they're little and you tell them to go get them their own snack, they have to know that even if they don't go get their own snack, if they truly need it, that you're going to be there. So my kids knew. It's like, yeah, mom could get this for you. I'm very careful in how I word things. When they're like, mommy, can you get me a snack? It's not, no, you can get your own snack. It's, I am not able to get you a snack right now. If you need it immediately, you can go into the fridge or you can go into the freezer and you can get, and then I list out what they are allowed to have. If you don't want that, if you want something different for mommy to make it, I'm doing this right now. I will make it for you. However, you have to wait. Now, my kids hate waiting. So this is also kind of reverse psychology. They're at the age now where they can logistically get their own snacks. They know how to use the microwave. They know how to use the toaster. They know what they're allowed to eat and what is off limits. They know how to get their own frozen fruit and frozen vegetables. So they are good. They're not toddlers. When Hunter was a toddler, I had a little drawer in the fridge that was stuffed with snacks. And he knew he could go into that drawer. He also knew that if he ate everything in that drawer, there was going to be nothing left and he wouldn't be able to access it. Now he's 10. Now he knows how to make his own pot of Kraft dinner. So it's a little bit tougher with him because he can pretty much make anything. He knows how to make his own burgers. He knows how to make like ground meat and turn it into tacos. Like, this kid knows how to cook. His sister is now learning how to use the microwave. So she tries to make oatmeal all the time and pour cereal. but like they know. It's like they're going to get fed. They've got food in the house. They're not responsible for the grocery list. They're not responsible for like the budget. So when I say, I don't even say we don't have the money for that. I say, I have already ordered the groceries. And if you want something else, you're going to have to wait until the next time I order the groceries. And if you eat all of what we have here, I am not ordering any more of this preferred snack that you like until our next grocery thing. So I also don't make them responsible for money. This is another thing. Like when I was a kid, I would always hear, we can't afford that. Or there's not enough money for that. If you eat all the food, we won't have any more. I basically felt responsible. It's like, I can't eat as much as I need to, or as much as I want to, because if I do, we're not going to have groceries. I can't drink all the milk. I can't have a piece of toast right now, because then we won't have enough bread for sandwiches. And dad's not going to be able to get that until our next payday, which is not for another little while. So I even memorized paydays. That was parentification. It wasn't intentional, but as the eldest child, seeing the trauma that my family went through, seeing that everybody was like basically in survival mode, I did take that on because I felt responsible. I felt that if I could help, then like this is actually how I ended up in the relationship that I ended up in, is because I would take that on too. I would take on all the problems. It was like a pattern that I've now broken. And I'm also not allowing my children to take that on. So when my son will want to take something out of the fridge, it's like, no, like I bought milk and it is for this week. And if you drink it all, I'm not buying more, not until the next payday. I do not want to have to do that right now because I'm not getting one thing. No. So they know that's not that we'll never have milk again, or we can't afford to buy more milk. It's like, if we really need it, I will get it. However, let's not waste stuff. Let's not overindulge. Let's not gorge ourselves on things. Same thing with laundry. I'll even say to my sons, like, look, I already did a load of laundry. If you're going to go and go through that many pairs of clothes in a day or in a couple of days, you do know how to use the laundry machine. So by all means, but you've got to do it. Again, there's no parentification. When I ask him to watch his sister for a second, it's not, if you don't watch her, nobody's going to watch her and she's going to get in trouble. It's, can you watch her for a quick second? And I'm just going to go and do this quick thing. And then I'm going to come back and like, it's just, you don't even have to do anything with her. Just make sure that she's still playing. And if you have any problems, come to me, because I'm the adult. I'm the one that enforces the boundaries, not you. Unlike me, when I would feel responsible for my brother. If I don't make dinner, nobody's going to make dinner. If I don't keep pestering my brother to eat, he's not going to eat, and I'm going to get in trouble because he's not eating. And I took that on. Really, I could have just put the food in front of him, walked up to my room and been like, well, I did my part of the job. I did what dad asked me to do. I don't need to do anymore. But I didn't have that because I was like, dad is working all the time. He's doing his best to try to make us a good life here. The least I can do is take care of my brother so that he doesn't have to worry about it because he's already got enough on his plate. And that is the difference. When a child feels emotionally responsible for the happiness of the parent or the well-being of the parent, that's a problem. When the eldest child feels responsible for the well-being of the family and doesn't give them their responsibility, that's a problem. When we feel like we have to be like the best and we can't take a break and we can't just sometimes just have a good cry. We can't break down just to cry because we have to be the strong one. That's a problem. So I've started to let myself cry. And I've also let the kids know when they do see me cry, it's like, mommy's just really, really frustrated and stressed right now. And she's okay. and we'll get through this. And if you want to bring me a tissue, that's fine, but you don't have to. I just need to be with my feelings for a minute. I'm still going to take care of you. Like, you don't have to take care of me. You can give me a hug if you want to give me a hug, but don't feel you have to give me a hug, because I can be okay even if you don't give me a hug. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The other thing, like if you're not parentifying your child, but you do want to give them a sense of independence, and you also are like, well, at what point, how do I do that? Or if you've noticed that you've been doing too much for your child and you're like, I think I kind of need to give them a little bit more independence because I do have another one on the way, or I just have other things in my life that I need to focus on. Here's how you do it in a way that can be empowering for them without them freaking out because you were always doing it for them, and they will fall apart if you just say, you're old enough to do this yourself. And it's like basically baby steps. This is how I do it with my kids too. It's like baby steps. I start with basically what I do with cooking, for instance, was I started with Hunter being able to go to the fridge and pick out his snack with me standing there and pointing out which drawer was his. Then once we had done that a few times and he knew where his snacks were and what to pick out and everything, then I would sit on the couch, being able to see him from the kitchen, and he would go get his own snack and he would look back at me and I would give him the thumbs up, or I would encourage him. He would get his snack, he would bring it to me, and I would open it for him. Eventually, he would go get his snack, he would bring it to me, I would open it a tiny little corner, and then he would do the rest. Then he would go get his snack, he would bring it back, he would open it himself, I would remind him to put the stuff in the garbage, he would go do that, and then he would come back and he would eat his snack. Once he got to that point, there was another point where I'd teach him how to make a sandwich without using the microwave or toaster or anything. I'd just say, okay, take some bread, take some cheese, put it together, make your sandwich. I was there with him. I had the ingredients already set out, and I just guide him in how to make it. Again, stepping back until he could make his own sandwich. Then came the next step, teaching him how to use the toaster. After that, teaching him how to use the microwave. It's the same thing. Starting off with him putting it in, me pressing the buttons, pressing start, letting him press start, letting him see that he's doing it until eventually he's doing it himself. Now he's cooking. That's how you do it. You just keep giving those baby steps. The same thing if you want your child to start walking to school by themselves. Hunter is now at the point where, like, we live across the street from the school. I don't know how long that's going to last. Hopefully, if we've got an investor and they want to keep this place as an income property, I can stay. That would be ideal. That would be what I'd really like. But at the same time, Hunter's going to middle school in a year from now. Like, he's going into grade 5 in September. So like, this is his time. He needs to learn how to walk to school. So I've started off small. First, I let him walk across the street with me, but not holding my hand and not being right next to his sister. Then I let him walk ahead. Now it's very easy. He's used to it. He goes across the street. I was watching him, and then I would follow with his sister. Then now he's just coming home on his own. He can come home on his own. If I've picked his sister up early and he's got a program, he just comes home on his own. Or if his sister has a program after school, he comes home on his own, and then we go over and get her together after, because he likes to pick her up. But like, I'm getting to that point where it's like, he needs to be able to walk to school. And same thing, when he gets to middle school, we'll learn how to walk the route. He'll be able to start doing it himself. He'll be able to do things himself, not be afraid, and he'll have that independence. His sister is now at the point where I'm just walking her across the street, and now she is walking all the way to her classroom by herself, and she's feeling good about that because I did the baby steps. First, I walked her to her classroom. Then I started to pull back where I was only at the steps towards the front of the school. Then I pulled back again to the steps at the back of the school. And then I pulled back again. And now it's just like I walk her across the street. I give her the little kissing hand. She walks off. She goes down the stairs. She goes all the way to her classroom. And I just pick her up at the end of the day because they won't let the kid out unless the parent's there because she's still only in grade 1, but she's 7. And like that is much more empowering for her to be able to do that. I still feel good about it. I still feel that it's enough for her. Whereas when I was her age, I did not feel good about walking alone 2 blocks by myself with nobody around to talk to. I was always scared. And I didn't know that my Nana was in the car hovering, watching me to make sure I got home okay. I had no idea about that. I thought I was completely alone. And that was really scary for me. And again, it contributed to me being like, I've just got to be strong. I've just got to do this all on my own. But I really wish that there was somebody there to stand beside me and help me. And yeah, so that's the difference. The difference is, are they emotionally ready? Are they physically ready? Are they developmentally ready? And if they're developmentally ready, then you've got to let go. And you can do it with baby steps because it's also emotionally for you to see that they are capable. Because if you just say, oh, well, they're old enough to do this themselves without doing those baby steps, it can be really jarring for yourself. Because even if your kid is ready to do it on their own, you're still standing back. It's like, yeah, but what if they make a mistake? What if they do this? What if this happens? And I don't know if I can let them do this themselves because I haven't seen them be able to do this themselves. So the baby steps again help you to see that they can actually do it themselves. That's just what I wanted to share today. And I mean, there's a whole lot more to this. And like being the eldest child and the life that I've basically lived, like there's been so much that I've gone through, just so much. I mean, I'm grateful because it's allowed me to be incredibly compassionate, and I do have that resilience. And at the same time, sometimes I just want to rest. Let's be honest. Sometimes I just want to rest. But it's allowed me to be able to parent my kids in a way that feels good to me because they're able to do this. And my son is not being parentified. He is still able to be a kid. And my daughter's able to be a kid. And that feels good to me, knowing that I've kind of broken the cycle in the single parent family and the eldest child being the most responsible and not having a life. My son at least has a life. He has his friends. And yeah, that's pretty much it today. I'm going to go and relax, and then I've got some more stuff to do, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.